At ABTech, we have a culture with intention, which means our culture has a purpose. It's a tangible item that we can work on together. And every company has a culture, whether you work on it or not. Whenever you get a group of people together, it becomes a combination of everybody's personality and character. And if you don't work on it, it can become quite a toxic monster. We created this culture with intention by, first of all, choosing our attitude, by supporting each other, making somebody's day, and having fun. So we learned about a culture with intention from John Yokoyama at Pike's Place Fish Market. And his phrase of "the fish stinks from the head" really resonated with me. And what that means is I set the tone for the culture. And I brought a business coach in, Jeff Sari from Keene, New Hampshire, to help me create a better culture. And I brought Jeff in to fix everybody else. I didn't realize that I was the problem. So very early on, Jeff helped me realize that I set the tone for the culture. And I started to learn about self-awareness, listening skills, working on my ego, opening my mind, and really just started down this personal journey of growth. I set the tone for the culture, but I can't do it alone. Everybody at ABTech has a responsibility to support the culture in a positive way. There might be a frustration with a coworker or a company policy or even a frustration with me, and we're expecting people to clear the air and give that feedback and have the conversation with the person so that that frustration goes away. I learned that the internal conversation is extremely critical to creating this culture with intention. Your actions follow your intentions, so in order to be aware of what your intentions are, you have to have an awareness of your thoughts. And that's where that internal conversation comes in. We all have those conversations with ourselves, and being aware of what that conversation is important to be able to create a positive culture. If your internal conversation is negative and limiting, your intention isn't going to be in the right place to help that person. You won't be as effective. Most people are good at analyzing the intentions of other people, but not their own intentions. At ABTech, we learned several tools. These are external tools that we use during our communication with people to support this culture with intention. Giving and receiving feedback are a couple of those tools, and they can be very difficult. Receiving the feedback can be difficult because you don't control when that happens. You might have upset somebody with some sarcasm or something you said, so you can't control when that person is going to come and give you that feedback. But you can control your reaction, how you react to that feedback. So for me, when somebody gives me feedback, I try to just breathe, not get upset, what we call triggered, if I'm triggered by somebody who said something that upset me. And I also try to be aware of their perspective, learn from them and listen to them as to what it is that I've done to upset them. Giving feedback for me can be difficult, and I've learned that I need to give myself time to process the situation and to make sure that I'm clear on, is it really me? Am I the problem? Or do I really need to give that person feedback? So I have to process. For me, it's a couple of days. And then going to that person and giving them that constructive feedback can be difficult and awkward because you don't really control how they react to that feedback. Most of the time, frustration with a coworker or somebody you're working with comes from a misunderstanding. So being able to give and receive feedback in a productive and powerful way allows you to clear up that frustration and repair the relationship. At ABTech, to support this culture, we've really learned and helped define what are acceptable and not acceptable behaviors. So a not acceptable behavior, one of them is what I call campaigning, which is when an employee, or even myself, goes around to different people and tries to state your case and get them to agree with you and campaign so that you're basically looking for people to justify your train of thought. Maybe it's an ego thing and you're trying to get people to understand it your way. And that's really that's a limiting conversation, and it's really counterproductive. It doesn't solve anything. Another non-acceptable behavior would be gossiping and complaining. So again, as you're complaining about something somebody else did, or maybe it's a company policy or a customer or a job, but those are limiting conversations and they don't solve the problem. If that employee can go to the source of the frustration, give the feedback in a respectful and productive way, and clear the air, then the frustration goes away and they've built a better relationship. Another non-acceptable behavior is to really look the other way or have that mentality that the culture is not my responsibility, that's the manager's responsibility. And that's really a limiting conversation. We all have the power and the capabilities and really the responsibility here at ABTech to participate in this culture in an active way and to give and receive feedback. Some acceptable behaviors really stem from living by our core values and listening with the intention to help somebody as opposed to lay blame, or going out of your way to help somebody. I've seen people go out to the parking lot in a snowstorm and just clear off all the cars without anybody asking, or giving appreciation to somebody, which is a way of giving a positive feedback. Not all feedback should be negative, and I think we forget to give and show appreciation to people. I've learned through this journey that a person can learn and grow, and I'm proof of that. I'm proof that leaders are made, not born. There's been many challenges during this transformation of this culture, and it really came from my own personal journey. I was learning self-awareness and learning these tools and skills to be a better person, and then trying to cascade that out to the entire staff. It didn't always go well. I've had a lot of turnover in the early days where people have left, didn't understand what I was trying to do, or they didn't fit our core values, and we've had to let them go. Another thing that I've learned is that I get attached to people, and I try to coach people to maybe open their mind and fit within our culture a little bit better. And what can happen there is you spend so much time on that person that's having difficulty that you neglect your star players. Throughout this journey, I've learned that you can fall off the rails, and maybe I'm not living by the core values. I started out at a very young age of being very sarcastic and critical of others, and it's been a long journey to learn different ways and undo that negative behavior. And I've learned to let myself off the hook once I've caught myself falling off the rails, or maybe somebody gave me the feedback and helped me realize that I fell off the rails, and I realized that we're all human. So you let go of that and just be those core values and get back on track. Sometimes that means you need to own your mistakes, maybe make an apology, and go back to what I call the scene of the accident. It's never too late to go back and clear the air and have that conversation with that person to build a better relationship. I realized throughout this journey also that it's more important for a person to have an open mind and have the right attitude to be able to live by our core values than the specific skill set. We can teach those skills. It's much more difficult to teach somebody how to open their mind and maybe let go of ego than it is to teach the specific job skills. One of the labels that we use would be to say a trigger. I got triggered. And what that usually means is you've gotten upset. And a trigger can come from a frustration. And a frustration might be when you're attached to an outcome. Maybe you come in and you're going to work on your project and you're going to get it done by noon. And then you get interruptions, things happen, and you become triggered and frustrated. Or you might be triggered in a conversation with somebody. When you're attached to an outcome, you're going to have that conversation with that person. You're going to explain to them that your way is right and they're wrong. And the conversation usually won't go that way, your way. And you can become frustrated and triggered. So I've learned to just show up and have the conversation with the person, listen with the intention to help, and see where that conversation goes, as opposed to being attached to an outcome. At ABTech, we design and manufacture high-precision air-bearing motion systems. It started out just being about the product, and I'm still very excited about that. And what's really taken over for me is this desire to create a culture with intention and create a more supportive work environment for everybody here. So it's really about having both. Very high precision air bearing motion systems and a culture with intention.